Here are a few things we've learned about time management.
I would say manage your time. That's the number one thing.
I could have done it a lot better. I struggled a lot with time management because I'm not the most organized person. So again, time management wasn't the easiest thing.
You don't really know how to manage your time well. You just do everything last minute if you're not like a high profile like overachiever. But it's good to be early, especially with work. Sometimes I had huge gaps in between due dates, but I always started early. And by the time they were done, I could take a breath and I'd be like, yes, I finished. So it's good to be prompt and be early with your time management. Don't leave for the last minute.
You should start right away. If someone, like a teacher or professor, gives you a project and there's a deadline, even though you might think, oh, it's far away, you should do it immediately and start immediately. I've already had a bad experience putting things off. When you put things off, you don't explore as many sources as you could have, and your work isn't as good.
Let's just put it this way. Once you're addicted to Facebook, you'll never go back.
Set aside a lot of time for your assignments as well as readings, because you don't want to get caught off guard, or you don't want to get caught at a point where you have to choose between, going to a party and having to read 5 chapters to catch up.
When you have an exam Monday, 2 essays due Tuesday, a test Wednesday, a presentation Thursday, how do you keep up? I use my agenda religiously. I'll write on a calendar at the beginning of the month everything I have due and make sure I have sufficient time to study for every class each week. This will take a lot of planning, and you have to be realistic. Are you really going to spend 4 hours Friday night doing your readings for next Thursday? Probably not. Give yourself some flexibility, but stick to the plan as best as possible. I always make sure to schedule in at least an hour of downtime every single night. For example, when I eat dinner, I catch up with friends or I watch TV. You'll quickly have to find clever ways to schedule in friends and fun time, but it's possible by planning ahead of time.
Again, I find myself in a bind for time management. I really did not use the rule that for every hour of in-class time, you should devote 2 hours for studying or reading. I regret it not only because my grades suffered some, but also because I did not learn as much in my courses as I should have. Sometimes I did useless, unproductive things like Facebook, which really is a sort of time black hole. I definitely did not manage my time well, and I got sidetracked too easily.
Here's what we've learned about reading and note-taking.
When it comes to reading techniques, not everybody learns the same way. It's good to always remember the importance of what reading is about. Ask yourself, why am I reading this? How does this tie into what my course is about? What does this mean to me? Internalizing it and always remembering to ask yourself, what does my prof want me to see from this? I like to read in small doses. Sometimes I want to read 5 pages, but I can only get 2, so I break it out throughout the day. On the bus, sitting before class, and then at home.
I try to read a text so that I understand the big picture. I have an outline of the core arguments, and I know how these fit together. Before I even read the text, I ask myself, what am I trying to get out of this? Why would my teacher set this as a reading? What does the title tell me about the text? Once I do this, I can start reading. First, I skim over the text, looking for key terms, words highlighted in bold or italics, and subtitles. These will give me an idea of what the text is about and possibly what the thesis is. After this, I do an in-depth reading. I like to read aloud if possible. Using a pen or highlighter to mark important words, I make notes in the margin. Afterwards, I'll write down all of my notes, what I've highlighted, and the questions and thoughts I have.
Here's what we've learned about critical thinking.
Critical thinking is one of the most important skills you will learn in university. There isn't a single book in the library that every expert agrees on, and no interpretation of these books is the same. Just because an expert wrote it does not mean that it cannot be analyzed, questioned, refuted, or expanded on. Your goal as a student should not be to just take down notes, memorize them, and regurgitate them, but to ask yourself, what are the implications of these concepts on a wider scale? What problems do these ideas raise? And how the ideas covered in class can connect and complement one another.
Critical thinking is something you must have in university, regardless of what your subject major is. It is a skill that one develops and gets better at. It allows you to constantly question things and not take things at face value. Just because a professional says it does not mean it is a fact. You need to question the kind of information you're receiving. It is a skill that allows you to form great arguments.